The EU plans to impose the WEF's direct carbon taxes on individuals now. Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum have been increasing the pressure on governments to introduce direct carbon taxes on individuals. Unsurprisingly, the anti-democratic far-left European Union appears to be the first to submit to the diktat from Davos. Klaus Schwab, that is. What does this mean for Europeans? Every time they turn on a heater, every time they fill up a vehicle with gasoline, they will be paying yet more tax out of their pockets for the greenhouse gases they are releasing. When I first heard that the EU plans on imposing direct carbon tax on individuals, I thought that it might be just another false internet rumor, but it's not false. News sources in Europe are reporting it. One of the latest one is AP, I just read. And you can find information about this plan on the official website of the European Parliament. I don't know why the corporate media in the United States is not talking about this, because this is an enormous story. It's a huge development. And as I write the article, the author says, I'm still in shock. It's actually happening. And if this plan is successfully implemented in Europe, it will be just a matter of time before a similar plan is pushed through in the United States. The following comes from a Dutch article that's been translated into English. Last night, after long negotiations, the bullet went through the church. Residents of the European Union must pay for the greenhouse gases they emit. This means that every time you refuel, and if the heating is switched on, you have to pay because of the harmful substances that are released as a result, which is interesting in light of a recent admission by Bill Gates to his inner circle, in which he was caught on tape admitting climate change agenda is a giant scam of New World Order. Now, according to Gates, wind, solar, battery technology, and other renewable energy sources might be fashionable, but they are not capable of solving climate change. And Michael Snyder reports, of course, they're starting small in an attempt to minimize opposition. Once this plan goes into effect, the cost of a liter of gasoline will go up by about 10 cents. The new scheme will entail higher prices at the pump, up to 10.5 cents for the liter of petrol, 12 cents for diesel, according to a study by Potsdam Institute for Climate Research. But as we've seen so many other times, once people become accustomed to new tax rates tend to go up significantly. According to one prominent member of the European Parliament, the new direct carbon taxes on individuals are part of the largest climate legislation package in the EU ever. I'm pleased that the balanced agreement has been reached on the largest climate legislation package in the EU ever, says Esther de Lange, MEP. She was one of the negotiators responsible for the coordination of the Green Deal and chief negotiator on the Social Climate Fund. We're being told that there is broad support for this climate legislation package across the political spectrum. Europe is scheduled to reduce carbon emissions dramatically by the year 2030, and this new legislation will be a central pillar of that effort. The measures are part of a package of climate laws. Before 2030, CO2 emissions must be reduced by 55%. European industry, which already partly has to do with this, will have to deal with higher emission costs. The companies from outside Europe will pay for their emissions at the border. The money raised with this can be spent on climate plans. If you do not like this new legislation, now's the time to make your voice heard. Personally, I pledge to make efforts to increase my carbon emissions in protest of this plan, the author says. In fact, I'm thinking about firing up my wood stove even now. Good news, if you want to call it that, is that the new carbon taxes are not scheduled to be implemented until the year 2027. So there's still time for the EU to reverse course. Unfortunately, other draconian measures that are designed to reduce carbon emissions are going full speed right now. For example, countless farms are currently being permanently shut down all over Europe. In the Netherlands alone, thousands of farmers are facing forced buyouts, either they like it, whether they like it or not. The government in the Netherlands is planning to conduct forced buyouts of 3,000 Dutch farms in the intention of closing them down to cut nitrogen emissions in half to meet the country's climate goals, and as many as 11,200 farms will have to close, and another 17,600 farmers will have to significantly downsize their livestock operations to meet these draconian targets. The plan could not come at a worse time because grocery prices are skyrocketing and world leaders are warning about an oncoming food crisis by supply disruptions caused by the war in Ukraine and rising input costs all resulting from the energy crisis. This is literally insane. For years, I've been warning, he says, that a global food crisis will be coming, and now it's here. 2022 was the worst year for global hunger in decades, and now the head of the International Committee of the Red Cross is warning that we'll see an enormous level of suffering in 2023. The head of the International Committee of Red Cross warned Wednesday an enormous level of suffering awaits the world in 2023 with famine spreading. Marjana Spoljaric, who took over at the ICRC in October, told the Geneva press conference, "We expect an enormous level of suffering in 2023. The head of the International Committee of the Red Cross warned Wednesday an enormous level of suffering awaits the world in 2023 with famine spreading. Maria Spoljaric, who took over the ICRC in October, told Geneva, "We expect an enormous level of suffering. As the world is trending at the moment, we don't see any easing of the humanitarian pressures. They will be immensely potential." Now, there is a possibility, she said, that we will see very high levels of hunger in many parts of the world and insecurity in general. Shutting down farms and paying farmers not to grow food in such an environment is absolutely crazy, but our politicians are doing it anyway. The global food crisis is going to get substantially worse in 2023, and our leaders seem intent on imposing measures that will greatly accelerate that process. This is by Baxter Dimitri on News Punch. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box